Emily's eyes blinked open to the unfamiliar ceiling of a luxurious room. The sheets beneath her felt too smooth, the air too still, and a quiet hum of ocean waves echoed outside the half-open balcony doors. For a second, she thought she was dreaming, until she turned her head and her heart jumped. There was a man lying beside her, and not just any man. He was tall, lean, his bare chest rising and falling with every slow breath. His features were sharp and masculine, and his dark lashes curled peacefully against his cheekbones. The worst part wasn't that she didn't recognize him. It was the fact that she was completely naked, and so was he. She gasped and clutched the sheet against her body. The sudden movement stirred him awake. He opened his eyes, blinking slowly, like he had all the time in the world. His gaze landed on her, calm and almost amused. She covered her mouth, her voice hoarse. "Who are you?" He stretched his arms behind his head casually and said, "You don't remember last night?" Her stomach dropped as a blur of memories flooded back. The fight with her ex, the tequila shots, the bartender who listened patiently, the quiet smile. Then everything else turned black. "Oh my God," she whispered. "What did we do?" The man sat up slowly, pulling the sheet to his waist. He looked at her, calm and serious now. "Nothing you didn't ask for," he said. "But if it makes you feel better, I didn't touch you without consent. I promise." Emily's face flushed red as she pulled the sheet tighter around her chest and turned away. "This was a mistake. I should go." He tilted his head slightly. "You left your clothes in the hallway, unless you want to walk out in my shirt." Emily's breath caught. This was a nightmare, one drunken mistake after another. She finally looked at him. "Why would you even take me here? Who brings a stranger home like that?" He hesitated for a beat before answering. "Because you looked like you needed someone to care, and I wasn't going to let you stumble into the street half-conscious." His voice was softer now, almost gentle. Emily didn't know what to say. The room was silent except for the crashing waves beyond the balcony. Her headache pulsed at her temples, but it was the tension in the air that was hardest to bear. Then he spoke again, this time slower. "There is something else. Something you should probably know." She turned around, wary. "Last night was my first time." She blinked. "Your what?" "My first time, ever." Emily froze, and the room suddenly felt colder. "You are kidding." He shook his head. "You don't look like someone who would lie about something like that." I don't lie." She didn't know how to process that. How did a man like him end up giving away his first time to a drunk stranger in a beach villa? Why would you do that? He paused before saying, "Because for once I wanted to choose for myself, and last night I chose you." Emily stood there, stunned. The morning sunlight lit half his face. He didn't look smug. He looked honest. She clutched the sheet and looked away. "This is insane." He didn't argue. He just watched her. And somewhere deep down, she realized this wasn't going to be easy to walk away from. Not after what just happened, and not after what she was starting to feel. Emily Donovan had never imagined waking up naked next to a stranger, let alone one who claimed to be a virgin. At 24, she thought she had her life somewhat figured out. She had a steady job as a freelance graphic designer, a small apartment in San Diego, and a relationship that until 2 weeks ago had seemed like it was heading toward marriage. But everything unraveled when she discovered her boyfriend of 7 years was not only cheating on her, but cheating with her best friend. Heartbroken and humiliated, she packed her bags and escaped to Newport Beach for a weekend of detachment, salt air, and, if necessary, tequila. It was supposed to be a reset. No romance, no risks, no men. Just her and her friend Nicole at a rented beachfront condo. But on their first night out, Nicole got a work call and left early, and Emily, already tipsy from one too many margaritas, wandered into a quiet seaside bar, the kind that didn't appear on Yelp and didn't have a sign outside. That's where she met him, the bartender. The one with the slate gray eyes, the calm hands, and the kind of stillness that drew you in without effort. He barely spoke, but when he did, his voice was low and quiet, and he actually listened. Emily remembered telling him things she hadn't said out loud in years. She remembered his small smile when she insulted her ex, and the way he poured her another drink without asking. After that, things became a blur. A cab ride, or maybe it was his car. A long hallway. A glass of water pressed into her hands. A soft bed. And now this. A morning she could not undo. The man beside her had introduced himself last night as Aiden. No last name, no details, just Aiden. She assumed he was another aimless 20-something, maybe working at the bar to cover surf lessons or rent. But everything around her told a different story. The room was too big, the sheets too soft, the walls were decorated with original artwork, the kind that belonged in galleries. A bottle of wine sat unopened in an ice bucket near the window. The label in French, something she'd seen on menus she couldn't afford. Then there was the view, panoramic oceanfront framed by sheer white curtains swaying in the morning breeze. None of this fit with the image of a bartender who made $40 a night in tips. Emily sat up carefully and tried to gather her thoughts. Her phone was missing. Her clothes were nowhere in sight. She didn't even know where she was. She was about to panic again when the door creaked open and Aiden stepped in, now dressed in a plain white t-shirt and loose linen pants, carrying a tray with 2 mugs of coffee. He offered her one without speaking. She hesitated, then took it. "Still think I'm a creep?" he asked casually as he sat down in the armchair across from the bed. "I'm reserving judgment," she replied, wrapping the sheet tighter around her chest. "You lied to me." "I didn't lie. You never asked who I was. You just assumed. You were behind a bar. That makes you a bartender." "Fair enough," he said, sipping from his mug. "But I never said I worked there. I just help out sometimes." "Because you're bored?" she challenged. He looked out the window. "Something like that." There was something about the way he carried himself, a kind of ease and precision that made her feel off balance. She had dated confident men before, arrogant ones even, but Aiden didn't seem like he was performing. He was just calm, and he looked at her like he already knew she wouldn't believe him. She set the coffee down. "So what are you then? Not a bartender, not a liar. Who the hell are you, really?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked over to the desk in the corner, opened a drawer, and pulled out a slim leather wallet. From it, he removed a black metal card. He handed it to her. The name on it read Aiden R. Adley. Her breath hitched. She had seen that name before in headlines, in articles, in Forbes, under 30 lists. Aiden Adley, heir to Adley Group, the luxury real estate empire, net worth reportedly in the billions, bachelor, virgin apparently. She looked up slowly. "This is a joke." "I wish it were," he said. "But it's real. I'm real." Emily stared at him. She wanted to laugh, to scream, to disappear. Nothing about this made sense. "So what now?" she asked finally. He shrugged. "That's up to you. But if you want to leave, I won't stop you. Just don't pretend last night didn't mean something, not to me." She didn't know what to say, but something inside her shifted. This wasn't just a morning after mistake. It was the beginning of something she hadn't expected. Emily stood barefoot on the cool marble floor of the hallway, wearing nothing but a borrowed oversized t-shirt and the remnants of her confusion. The coffee in her hands had long gone cold, but she wasn't ready to let go of it. The weight of Aiden's name, the sharp realization of who he truly was, and the awkward intimacy of what they had shared, all collided inside her chest like a storm she couldn't stop. Aiden Adley. Not just a bartender, not a stranger. A billionaire, a public figure, and someone who had deliberately hidden behind a bar in a nameless seaside pub while pretending to be someone else. She wanted to hate him for the deception, but he had never actually lied. He had only let her assume. Still, it didn't sit right. Nothing about it did. She stepped into the living room, where he stood by the glass balcony doors, staring out toward the ocean, like he belonged to it. The sun reflected off his dark hair, and his posture was calm, but there was a stillness in his shoulders that felt anything but relaxed. "So," she began carefully, "you do this a lot? Pick up strangers and bring them back to your villa?" He didn't turn around. "Never," he said quietly. "You were the first." She scoffed, unsure whether to laugh or leave. "You expect me to believe that? You don't have to," he said, finally turning to face her. "But it's the truth." She met his gaze. His expression was steady, unreadable. He wasn't pleading or charming or trying to convince her. He was just stating facts, as if that was all he knew how to do. "Why me?" she asked. "Why that night?" Aidan walked toward the bar in the corner of the room and poured himself a glass of water. "Because you didn't look at me like everyone else does. You didn't know who I was, and for the first time in years, I could breathe." Emily took a slow sip of her cold coffee and watched him. She wanted to believe him, but believing him meant accepting that she had just slept with a billionaire recluse who also happened to be a virgin and also happened to be engaged to someone else, at least according to the article Nicole had sent her. "There's something else," she said slowly. "My friend sent me an article. You're supposed to get married this week, is that true?" Aidan set his glass down and nodded. "It's true." The words hung between them like an open wound. "So I was just, what, a rebellion? One last night of freedom before your perfect rich boy wedding?" He took a step toward her. "No, it's not like that." "Then what is it like?" she snapped. "You want honesty? Fine. I'm giving it to you. You picked me up, brought me here, slept with me, told me you were a virgin, and now I find out you're about to marry someone else. Why should I believe a single word you say?" He didn't flinch. "Because I didn't pick you up. You were the one who leaned on the bar and asked if I wanted to run away with you. You kissed me first. You held my hand. You told me you were tired of pretending to be okay, and I felt the same way." Emily's face burned. She remembered pieces of it, fragments of their conversation over drinks, her laughter, his silence, the warm buzz in her veins. She had wanted to feel something other than betrayal. She had wanted to forget. "So, who is she?" she asked, voice quieter now. "The woman you're supposed to marry." Aidan sighed. "Her name's Lee. We grew up together. Our families have been business partners for decades. The marriage is about a merger, not love. It was arranged, but neither of us wanted it." "Then why go through with it?" "Because if I don't, my father pulls out of the deal and everything my grandfather built falls apart. And Lena's father loses his biggest investor. We're both pawns." Emily looked away, overwhelmed. "And what about us?" she said softly. "Is there even an us? Or was this just a beautiful accident?" Aidan stepped closer. "It wasn't an accident. Maybe it wasn't planned, but it meant something to me. I've spent my whole life being told what to do, how to act, who to marry, and for once I wanted something real." Emily stared at him. She didn't know what to say. There was a part of her that wanted to believe every word, to fall into his arms and forget about the world outside, but the logical part of her mind screamed that it was dangerous, foolish, impossible. "I can't be a secret," she whispered. "I won't be your escape." "I don't want to hide you," he said, his voice low and steady. "But if I'm going to walk away from everything, I need to know that what we have is more than just one night." She hesitated. He stepped even closer. "Stay, just for today. No pressure, no expectations. Let's just talk, eat, breathe, be people, not roles." Against her better judgment, Emily nodded. Close to one day, she could do that. Aidan took her hand gently and led her to the kitchen, where he made breakfast. Eggs, toast, fruit, nothing fancy despite the expensive appliances. They ate at the counter like two normal people. He asked about her work, she asked about his childhood. He told her how his parents were always too busy, how he hated boarding school, how he used to sneak out and wash dishes at his grandfather's old hotel just to feel invisible. She told him about losing her mom at 15, about building her own business from scratch, about how betrayal felt like drowning. Time passed slowly, gently. The tension melted into cautious laughter, shared memories, and meaningful silences. After breakfast, they walked along the beach barefoot. The ocean breeze tangled Emily's hair, and Aidan looked more human than ever, more real. "You're not who I expected you to be," she said. "Neither are you," he replied. That evening, as the sun dipped into the horizon, painting the sky in strokes of pink and gold, Aidan turned to her. "I don't want to go through with the wedding." Emily's heart skipped. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't want to pretend anymore. I want to choose. And I choose you." She stared at him, stunned. "But what about your family, the company, all of it?" "I'll figure it out. If I lose it all, I lose it. But I won't lose myself." Emily didn't respond. "Not yet." The waves crashed behind them, steady and unrelenting. She looked at him, this man who should have been out of reach, and realized he was willing to risk everything for something real. For her. And that terrified her more than anything else. Emily lay awake that night, curled beneath the cool sheets of the same bed where her story with Aidan had begun. The room was silent, but her mind was far from it. She had agreed to stay one more day, to give herself time to process everything, yet nothing felt clearer. If anything, the lines between logic and feeling were even more blurred. Aidan had told her the truth, at least the version he wanted her to know, but the questions still echoed in her mind. Could she trust him? Or was she falling into a carefully constructed illusion designed to pull her into a world that would never belong to her? She turned and looked at him sleeping beside her. His breathing was even, his face soft and unguarded in the dim light. There was no arrogance there, no trace of the billionaire she had seen in headlines. He looked like someone who had finally found peace, and somehow she had been the cause of it. That thought both comforted and terrified her. The next morning, Emily woke early and wandered into the living room. She needed air, or coffee, or a reason to not walk out and never come back. On the kitchen counter, she noticed his phone unlocked, screen glowing from a missed call. The name on the screen made her stomach twist. Lena Kensington. She didn't touch the phone, but the name stayed with her. It was one thing to hear about a fiancé from the man himself. It was another to see it confirmed, in pixels and vibrations. Aidan appeared minutes later, hair damp, wearing a gray t-shirt and jeans. He looked surprised to see her awake. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. "Barely," she admitted. He poured them both coffee and leaned against the counter. "I want to tell you something I didn't say yesterday." She nodded cautiously. "I'm listening." He set down his cup and folded his arms. "Lena knows everything. About us, about the night we spent together. She knew even before I did." Emily blinked, caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" "The villa has cameras. Not in the bedroom, obviously, but in the common areas. She saw us come in together, saw me carry you to the room. She called me the next morning and said she wouldn't stop me." Emily frowned. "She just accepted it." Aidan looked down. "Lena and I were never in love. We were best friends. We made a deal. I'd go through with the engagement so our parents could sign the merger, but we'd call it off before the wedding. It was just about timing until you..." Emily felt something shift inside her. She wasn't angry, not exactly, but she was overwhelmed. "So what happens now?" she asked quietly. "The wedding is still happening, right?" Aidan nodded. "It's scheduled for Saturday, but we both know it's not real. We're going through the motions until our parents think it fell apart naturally. If we pull out now, the whole deal collapses and the fallout could be huge." "But you just said you'd walk away from everything." "I meant it, but Lena asked me to give her 3 more days. 3 days to close the deal, then we end it. She wants out, too. We just want to protect the people we care about." Emily leaned against the island, unsure of how to feel. "So, You're asking me to wait in the background while you play fiancé to someone else for 3 more days? I'm asking you to trust me, he said, to trust her. After that, it's over, and I'll be free to be with you openly. Emily turned away, staring out the window at the beach. The idea of waiting in the shadows made her skin crawl, but deep down, she sensed he wasn't lying. He looked genuinely torn. I need some time, she said. Take it, he replied. That afternoon, Emily went back to the condo she had originally rented with Nicole. It felt strange to return to normal life, even briefly. Nicole, as expected, bombarded her with questions, but Emily said little. She needed time to think, to feel, to breathe outside of Aiden's world. That night, she searched online. She looked up Lena Kensington, expecting a cold heiress with a perfect pedigree. What she found was something else. Lena was a successful art gallery owner, known for her philanthropy and bold fashion sense. Photos of her and Aiden appeared in tabloids over the years, but they looked more like siblings than lovers. She found an interview where Lena laughed and said, "If Aiden and I ever got married, we'd kill each other within a week. He's too neat. I'm too loud." The more she read, the less the engagement made sense, and yet the more believable it all became. The next day, Emily was back at her laptop when her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared. He's not lying. This is Lena. Can we talk? Her heart skipped. She hesitated, then replied. Where? Lena chose a quiet cafe downtown. Emily recognized her instantly from the photos. Tall, elegant, confident. She stood when Emily walked in and extended her hand. Thanks for coming, Lena said. Emily sat down slowly. So you really knew about everything? I did, Lena replied. And if it makes you feel better, I encouraged him to tell you the truth. Why? Lena took a deep breath. Because Aiden hasn't been happy for a long time. We've both been stuck in this ridiculous arrangement out of obligation. You gave him a reason to finally take a step forward. I respect that. Emily stared at her. You're not angry? No, Lena said with a small smile. Relieved, actually. Now I can stop pretending too. There was a long pause. Emily sipped her tea and let Lena's words settle. So what happens to the wedding? It will go on, Lena said. For show. Just a few more days. Then we call it off. That's the plan. And what do you want from me? Emily asked. Lena looked at her kindly. Just don't walk away too fast. He's worth the wait. And trust me, this is not a man who opens up easily. He's let you in. The words lingered as Emily walked back to her condo. She knew Lena had no reason to lie. If anything, she had every reason to keep Emily away. But she hadn't. That night, Emily sat alone on the balcony, thinking. About Aiden, about trust, about timing. She knew what she felt wasn't just physical. It had never been just one night. It was real, and that terrified her. But it also gave her something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The morning of the wedding was unusually calm. The sky was overcast, the breeze gentle but cool, and the entire Adley resort shimmered under a gray light that made everything feel a little less staged. Emily stood by the window of her room at the resort, watching the final preparations from above. Chairs were arranged in perfect symmetry, white roses wrapped the altar, and uniformed staff moved like clockwork. It was a picture-perfect setup, and yet she felt like an outsider looking into a movie she had no role in. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the curtain as her stomach twisted. Today, Aiden would stand in front of hundreds of guests and pretend to marry someone else. Emily had agreed to wait, had told herself it was just a formality, but now, as the music began to play in rehearsals and guests began to arrive in luxury cars, the weight of her decision settled heavier on her chest. She turned away from the window and stared at her reflection. The pale blue dress Nicole had helped her pick out looked elegant, tasteful, completely inappropriate for how chaotic she felt inside. She wasn't invited to the ceremony, of course. She was just nearby, just in case. That was what Lena had said in their second meeting the day before. Stay close, not for the event, but for him. When it's time, he'll want you near. Emily hadn't known what to do with that. She had nodded politely, gone through the motions, but now, as she stood alone, everything felt more fragile than ever. At exactly 2 in the afternoon, she heard a soft knock on the door. She opened it to find a hotel staff member holding an envelope. "For you, miss," the young man said, bowing slightly before leaving. Inside was a handwritten note on heavy paper, 4 words. "Come to the balcony." Her heart jumped. She stepped into sandals and crossed the suite, pushing open the glass doors. Aidan stood there, not in a tuxedo, but in a navy button-up shirt and slacks, hands in his pockets, hair tousled by the wind. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were fixed on her. "You're not dressed for your wedding," she said quietly. "Neither is the bride," he replied. "We called it off an hour ago." Emily stared at him. "What?" "The merger's done. Paper signed this morning. We didn't need a wedding after all." "And your parents?" "Furious. But it's done. Lena flew out half an hour ago. She's already on her way to Greece." Emily stepped closer, trying to process it. "So, it's over? The deal is—" "Yes," he said, then paused. "But not everything." Her heart pounded as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I know we've only had a few days, and this probably makes no sense on paper, but nothing else in my life has ever felt this real." He opened the box. Inside was not a diamond ring, but a silver key on a delicate chain. "This is not a proposal, not yet. This is me asking if you'll come home with me. Not for tonight, for a chance. For us." Emmeline didn't answer right away. She stepped forward, looked down at the key, and then at him. "Are you serious?" "Completely," he said. "I want you to see where I come from, not as a stranger or an investor's son, but as the man you met in that bar, the one who gave you his first time without knowing if he'd ever see you again." A part of her wanted to cry. Another part wanted to run. But most of her wanted to say yes. Not because of the view or the key or the grand gesture, but because for the first time since her world had fallen apart, she felt like she wasn't alone. She reached for the key slowly and closed her fingers around it. "One condition," she said softly. "I don't do secrets, not anymore." "No secrets," he agreed. "No lies, just us." "Then take me home." Aidan exhaled. The tension in his shoulders finally breaking, he stepped forward, wrapped his arms around her, and held her like he never wanted to let go. That night, instead of a wedding, the resort hosted a quiet dinner under string lights on the back patio. Just Aidan and Emily, a bottle of wine, and the sound of the waves in the distance. No tuxedos, no speeches, just the two of them finally breathing without pretending. She asked him questions she hadn't dared before, about his family, his future, what he wanted beyond boardrooms and contracts. He told her he wanted to build something of his own, something real. Not for legacy, not for headlines, but for the kind of peace he had felt, waking up beside her that morning. She listened, and somewhere between his stories and her laughter, they both knew they were building something already. The next day, they left the resort together. No headlines followed them, no cameras, just the quiet knowledge that they had chosen each other despite every reason not to. Emily didn't know what would come next. She didn't know if they would face scandals or boardroom battles or public gossip, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't afraid of any of it. Not with him. The days following their departure from the resort felt surreal, like walking through a dream that refused to fade. Emily found herself on a private jet for the first time in her life, sitting beside Aidan as he typed something on his laptop and sipped espresso like it was just another Tuesday. They were headed to his home in Northern California, a sprawling estate just outside Napa Valley, surrounded by vineyards and silence. As the plane descended, she tried to steady her thoughts. Everything had moved so quickly. Just a week ago, she was sitting in a beach bar nursing heartbreak. Now she was flying across the state with a billionaire who claimed he had given her his first time, and more than that, his trust. When they landed, the property took her breath away. It wasn't ostentatious, but elegant. Long white fences lined the gravel driveway, tall oaks shaded the winding path, and the house itself was a blend of old stone and modern glass, nestled between two soft hills like a secret sanctuary. Inside, the place was warm, minimalist, and filled with small details that told her he wasn't trying to impress her. He had simply brought her home. For the first few days, everything felt perfect. They cooked meals together, explored the vineyards, spent long afternoons reading on the porch or walking through the nearby woods. Aidan showed her his workshop, where he designed custom furniture as a way to unwind. It was messy, charming, and completely unexpected. But the quiet couldn't last forever. On the fourth day, Emily overheard a phone call that shifted everything. Aidan was in his office with the door half open, speaking in a clipped voice she had never heard from him before. "No, we're not reconsidering the deal. I gave my word to Lena. This isn't about legacy, it's about integrity. My answer is final." There was a pause, followed by a low, tense sentence. "If my father wants to threaten me again, he knows where to find me." Emily stepped back before he noticed her and returned to the kitchen, her heart pounding. The words echoed in her mind: threaten, integrity, reconsider. She knew he had walked away from the arranged marriage and the family deal, but she hadn't realized the cost. That night, she finally asked him about it. "What happens if your father cuts you off?" she said quietly as they sat by the fire pit. Aidan stared into the flames for a long moment. "Then I rebuild. I don't need the trust fund or the board seat. I have enough saved. I have my own projects. But more than that, I have peace." "And me?" she asked. "You have me too?" He turned to her slowly. "If you want to be here, then... yeah, I want you here. I need you here." Emily nodded, but something inside her remained unsettled. It wasn't about money or lifestyle. It was about the storm he had walked away from, and whether it might follow them both. A few days later it did. A tabloid article hit the internet like wildfire. Photos of Aidan and Emily at the resort, a blurry shot of them walking on the beach, a headline that screamed betrayal: "Billionaire Groom ditches heiress bride for mystery girl." Emily's phone exploded with messages. Nicole called, panicked. Emily ignored it all and waited for Aidan. When he finally walked into the room, he already knew. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "They followed us?" "Probably someone from the resort staff sold the photos. It was bound to happen." "What now?" "Now we don't hide," he said. "We don't run." But it wasn't that simple. The article triggered a wave of consequences. Aidan's father sent a lawyer demanding a public statement to clean up the family's image. Lena was harassed online despite having nothing to do with the story. Emily's own social media was flooded with hate, with strangers calling her names, questioning her motives, digging into her past. It was brutal, unrelenting. One morning, she sat on the back porch staring at the hills, her hands trembling as she scrolled through anonymous threats. Aidan found her there and gently took the phone from her hands. "I'll fix it," he said. "I promise." "You can't stop the internet," she whispered. "But I can stand in front of it." That evening, Aidan released a statement to the press. It was short, clear, and powerful. The decision to end the engagement with Lena Kensington was mutual, and made long before I met Emily Donovan. Any speculation otherwise is false and disrespectful to both women. I stand by my choice to pursue something real, and I will not apologize for it. The message went viral, praised for its tone, clarity, and refusal to fall into sensationalism, but the noise didn't stop entirely. And the next day, the damage came closer to home. Emily received an anonymous email containing photos from her past, photos taken in college, silly and harmless on their own, but edited to look provocative. A short message followed: "Walk away from him or this gets worse." She didn't tell Aidan, not at first. She wanted to protect him, to avoid adding to his growing list of problems. But the fear ate at her. That night, she barely slept. The next morning, Aidan noticed her silence and pressed gently. She handed him the phone. His face darkened as he read the message. "This ends now," he said. "We'll report it," she said. "They'll just use another number, another email. Then we go public together. We face it together. What if it ruins everything?" He met her eyes, fierce and unwavering. "If being with you ruins everything, then everything wasn't worth keeping." She stared at him, overwhelmed. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I," he replied. "But I'm not letting you go." They issued a joint interview the next day, a small, reputable publication. No drama, no tabloid bait, just their story, honest, quiet, human. They talked about how they met, how quickly things escalated, how they were figuring it out one step at a time. The response was mixed, but something began to shift. People saw them as real. Not gossip, not scandal, just two people who found each other at the wrong time and decided to stay anyway. In the weeks that followed, the noise began to fade. Lena gave her own interview, confirming the truth and praising Emily for her grace. The threats stopped, the articles shifted tone, and one morning, as they walked through the vineyards with coffee in hand, Aidan turned to her and said, "I never knew peace until you." "That's what I'm protecting, not a company, not an image, you." Emily smiled, her fingers lacing through his. For the first time in a long time, she believed they might just make it. 6 months later, the world had stopped watching. The cameras had turned to newer scandals, fresher names, and more convenient headlines. What remained was real life. And for Emily, real life meant slow mornings in Napa Valley, hands wrapped around a warm mug, bare feet on cool wooden floors, and the steady presence of a man who never once let her fall alone. Aidan had kept his promise. He rebuilt on his own terms. The family business had gone on without him, and he had launched a small development firm focused on sustainable housing, something he had always wanted to do but had never been allowed. Emily supported him and he supported her. She launched a design studio from the guest house, worked with clients she chose, and said no more often than yes. They shared everything, from quiet dinners to late-night walks, from unfiltered conversations to silent understanding. They fought sometimes, of course, but never cruelly. They knew too well the cost of secrets, the weight of silence. One evening, after a long day, they sat on the porch as the sun dipped behind the hills. Aidan reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. It was not a ring, it was the same silver key he had given her that day at the resort, now hanging from a chain beside another, slightly larger one. He placed it in her hand and smiled. "This one's for the front door. It's yours now, officially." Emily looked at the keys and felt the tears rise. It wasn't about ownership. It was about belonging. She looked at him, and in that moment she saw everything. Not the billionaire, not the news headline, just the man. The one who had chosen her without a script, without a safety net. She leaned into him, rested her head on his shoulder, and let the quiet settle. "I never expected this," she whispered. "Neither did I," he replied, "but some things are worth breaking the rules for." She smiled, and for the first time in a long time, she felt whole. In another life, in another world, maybe they would have never crossed paths, but life had a way of rearranging the chaos, of building something beautiful out of what was broken. They had met in the ruins, but they had chosen to stay, and that, more than any perfect plan, had made all the difference. Sometimes love doesn't arrive when it's convenient. It arrives when everything else has fallen apart. And in that moment, if you're brave enough to reach for it, you just might find the one person who makes the chaos worth surviving.